Something is shifting in Cleveland, and it's not loud, but it's deliberate. While fans argue about who should be QB1, the Browns quietly locked in 6 roster pieces, reinforced the offensive line, and kept tightening the structure around their quarterback room. And then Mel Kiper went on ESPN and said it plainly: Shedeur Sanders should be QB1. Not maybe, not we'll see. QB1. Now, no official starter has been named. Todd Monken hasn't handed anyone the keys. But when roster construction and national draft analysts start aligning at the same time, that's usually not random. Protection upgrades, depth retention, draft strategy pointing toward true left tackle help, and a respected analyst doubling down that Shedeur already surpassed expectations. So the real question is simple. Are the Browns quietly building around Shedeur Sanders? Or is this just smart team building being overanalyzed? Let's break down the pattern, because patterns don't lie. On the surface, tendering 6 exclusive rights free agents doesn't sound like headline news. No fireworks, no splashy contract numbers, no dramatic press conference. But roster construction isn't always about the loud move. Sometimes it's about tightening the foundation. Andrew Berry locked in Brendan Bates, Malachi Corley, Winston Reed, Rex Sunahara, Andre Schmidt, and Jamari Thrash. That's tight end depth, receiver development, linebacker continuity, special teams stability. And that matters more than people think. Exclusive rights tenders are about control. You keep young, cost-effective players in the building. You protect your developmental pipeline. You avoid creating unnecessary holes. Take Malachi Corley. He showed flashes last season. Jet sweeps, manufactured touches, situational explosiveness. He's not WR1, but he's functional in space, and functional players help quarterbacks find rhythm. Jamari Thrash, young, still developing, upside, depth insurance, competition in the room. Then there's the special teams pieces. Long snapper, kicker. Those positions don't trend on Twitter, but they decide close games. Field position, hidden yards, 3-point swings. That's stability. And here, why that stability matters right now. The Browns aren't in a position where they can afford chaos at quarterback again. Whether it's Shedeur, Deshaun, or someone else, the evaluation has to be clean this year. You can't judge a quarterback properly if receivers can't catch, if the special teams unit is shaky, or if depth collapses midseason. So what do these 6 moves signal? They signal infrastructure. They signal that Cleveland doesn't want the conversation to be about missing pieces anymore. They want to eliminate variables. And this came right after trading for offensive line help. That's not coincidence. That's sequence. You lock in controllable depth. You fortify protection. You stabilize the perimeter. You're building an environment where whoever wins QB1 doesn't have built-in excuses. Now, does this automatically mean they're building around Shedeur? Not officially, but it does mean they're building for a quarterback to succeed. And when you combine that with what Mel Kiper said next, the pattern starts looking more intentional than accidental. If you want to know what a franchise truly believes about its quarterback room, don't listen to the hype. Watch what they do up front. The Browns traded for a right tackle. They're openly discussing left tackle options in the draft. And now Monroe Freeling's name is climbing boards as a potential top 10 selection, even at 6. That's not small talk. Freeling isn't being mocked because he's versatile. He's being mocked because he's a true left tackle, 6'7½", 315 pounds, 35-inch arms. Length matters at that position, especially in the AFC where elite edge rushers live on third down. Mel Kiper made it clear most of the other linemen in this class are being projected inside. Guard, center, position flexibility. Freeling, pure blindside. And when a team drafts a blindside protector that high, it's not for depth. It's for longevity. Now let's keep this grounded. Every quarterback benefits from protection. This isn't exclusive to Shedeur Sanders. Deshaun Watson would benefit. Any future QB would benefit. But here's the difference. When you invest heavily in tackle play during a quarterback evaluation window, you're removing chaos from the equation. No more the line was decimated. No more the protection collapsed. No more he never had time. You fortify the trenches. Then you evaluate honestly. That's what this feels like. And remember, Cleveland weather isn't forgiving. Snow, wind, cold. You can't run finesse football in December if your line collapses. Protection equals clarity. And clarity equals real answers. So if the Browns go tackle at 6, especially a true left tackle, it signals something powerful. It signals they want this quarterback competition decided by execution, not survival. And here where it gets interesting. Right as Cleveland is reinforcing protection, Mel Kiper is going on national television saying Shedeur Sanders already surpassed expectations. That timing isn't random, because Kiper didn't hedge. He didn't say wait and see. He made it very clear where he stands. Mel Kiper has evaluated quarterbacks for decades. He's seen hype machines. He's seen busts. He's seen generational talents. And when he went on ESPN to talk about Shedeur Sanders, he didn't hedge. He doubled down. He said he watched every snap. He laid out the context: decimated offensive line, receivers dropping balls, weather conditions that would make most rookies unravel. Snow, rain, wind, cold. And in the middle of that, Shedeur went 3-4 and could have easily been 4-3. That's not blind praise. That's evaluation with context. Kiper even broke down the interception narrative, that infamous 3-pick game. He pointed out that one of those came off a dropped touchdown that turned into a turnover. That changes perception immediately. Stat lines without context can bury quarterbacks. Kiper added context back into the conversation. He also addressed something bigger: the hate every quarterback culture in draft analysis. His argument was brutally honest. If you criticize every quarterback coming out of college, statistically you'll be right most of the time. Most don't become Mahomes. It's the safest take in football. But it's not always the most insightful one. He referenced how critics still minimize Josh Allen because he hasn't won a Super Bowl. How Lamar Jackson's playoff losses overshadow MVP seasons. How narratives linger even when performance says otherwise. And then he said it plainly. Shedeur is as good as anyone in that 2026 quarterback class. That's a strong statement. Not top 5. Not intriguing prospect. As good as anyone. Now let's be balanced. Kiper doesn't set the Browns' depth chart. His opinion doesn't hand out QB1 jerseys. But national validation shifts pressure. When a respected draft voice publicly backs a young quarterback and simultaneously calls out analyst bias, it changes the conversation. Suddenly it's not can he survive. It's why are people still doubting him? And when that narrative shift happens at the same time Cleveland is reinforcing protection and depth, it doesn't feel accidental. It feels like alignment. But alignment doesn't mean decision. It means setup. And that setup becomes even more interesting when you zoom out and look at the draft strategy behind it. Zoom out for a second. If the Browns take Monroe Freeling at 6, what does that tell you? It tells you they're prioritizing structure over splash. Freeling isn't the flashy pick. He's not a viral highlight reel. He's a foundational piece. A true left tackle prospect with the length and athletic traits teams covet when they want stability on the edge for the next decade. And that matters because most of the other top linemen in this class are being projected inside. Guards, centers, positional flex players. Freeling, blindside anchor. That's a long-term investment. Now combine that with what Kiper said about the receiver class. He called wide receiver the deepest position in the draft, meaning Cleveland could address tackle early and still find reliable pass catchers in rounds 2 through 4. Chris Braswell, Antonio Williams, Omar Cooper Jr., depth all over the board. That's strategic layering. You protect early. You add weapons later. And here's another subtle angle Kiper mentioned: weather. Cleveland isn't built for finesse football in December. You need receivers who can catch through contact and handle cold conditions. Ohio State guys, used to it. Big Ten weather, not a shock. If the Browns target receivers who are reliable in bad weather and linemen who can anchor against elite pass rushers, they're building an environment that removes excuses. And once excuses are removed, quarterback evaluation becomes brutally honest. That's the key. This doesn't automatically mean they're building for Shedeur. It means they're building an ecosystem where whoever wins the job can't blame infrastructure. Protection addressed. Receiver drops minimized. Depth collapse stabilized. That's how competent franchises operate. And when you line that up next to Kiper publicly declaring Shedeur already outperformed expectations in chaos, the narrative becomes intriguing. Because now the Browns aren't just adding pieces. They're creating a clean runway. Which leads to the real question. Are they quietly preparing to hand Shedeur the keys? Or are they simply making sure that whoever earns it does so without chaos clouding the verdict? Here, what stands out the most. None of these moves feel desperate. There's no reach for a headline receiver, no wild trade rumors, no frantic quarterback acquisition talk, just steady, calculated reinforcement. That's important, because for years, Cleveland's quarterback situations have felt reactive. Injuries pile up, protection breaks down, then midseason adjustments try to plug leaks. This offseason doesn't feel like that. It feels methodical. Tender the young depth. Add protection. Study true left tackle prospects. Recognize receiver depth in later rounds. That's a blueprint. And blueprints don't scream uncertainty. They signal preparation. Now let's be careful. No one in Berea has said Shedeur Sanders is QB1. Deshaun Watson is still in the building. Competition still exists. Training camp will matter. But when a franchise invests in cleaning up the environment around the quarterback position, it tells you they want clarity. Not noise. Not chaos. Clarity. Because if Shedeur takes that fortified environment and thrives, the answer becomes obvious. If Watson steps into improved protection and looks like the veteran he's paid to be, that becomes obvious too. The difference this time is that infrastructure won't be the scapegoat. And that's what makes this feel different. Mel Kiper's comments amplified the conversation. He called out the hate every QB culture. He framed Shedeur's performance through context, not box scores. That adds national pressure. But the real signal isn't coming from ESPN. It's coming from roster sequencing. Protection first. Stability second. Evaluation third. That's not a random order. That's how teams prepare to make real decisions. And if you step back and look at it objectively, it doesn't scream, "We're forcing a youth movement." It whispers something more calculated. We're about to find out. Which brings us to the final piece of this puzzle. Because if camp opens and one quarterback separates in this cleaned-up structure, the debate ends. Not with hype, with proof. All of this, the tenders, the tackle talk, the Kiper endorsement, it's building toward one thing: a clean evaluation window. And that's what makes this offseason different. When training camp opens, the Browns won't be able to lean on chaos as an explanation. The offensive line is being addressed. The receiver room is being stabilized. Special teams are locked in. Depth isn't leaking out the back door. So when the quarterbacks take the field, the environment will be clearer than it's been in years. And clarity changes everything. Because now, if Shedeur Sanders steps into that environment and commands the offense, the narrative shifts from potential to arrival. If Deshaun Watson shows veteran control and elevates the group, the organization has validation. If someone else surprises the room, it won't be dismissed as fluky. The infrastructure will expose the truth. That's the quiet power of what Andrew Berry and Todd Monken are doing. They're removing excuses. No more the line was decimated. No more receivers couldn't catch. No more weather ruined the rhythm. If those variables are minimized and one quarterback still rises above the others, the decision becomes undeniable. And that's the word that matters. Undeniable. Mel Kiper can declare QB1 on national television. Fans can debate betting odds. Social media can amplify every rep, but none of that decides the depth chart. Performance does. Still, don't ignore the sequencing. You don't fortify protection, emphasize receiver reliability, and stabilize depth unless you intend to evaluate seriously. This isn't the Browns gambling. This is the Browns preparing. And that preparation suggests something important. They don't want drama at quarterback this year. They want clarity. Because clarity ends debates. Clarity ends excuses. Clarity creates direction. So when camp begins and reps get real, whoever takes control won't just win a job. He'll win it in a structure designed to expose exactly who's ready. And that's when this entire offseason, the moves, the mocks, the media statements will finally make sense. Here, where things get interesting. Momentum and decisions are not the same thing. Right now, Shedeur Sanders has momentum. National analysts backing him, fans energized, infrastructure being cleaned up around the position. It feels like things are leaning in one direction. But feeling isn't final. Momentum raises expectations. It changes how every rep is viewed. It amplifies success. It magnifies mistakes. If Shedeur throws a perfect red zone fade in camp, it'll trend. If he misses a read in 2-minute drills, critics will clip it instantly. That's the double edge of belief. And that's why the Browns' approach matters. They're not crowning anyone publicly. They're not leaking depth chart whispers. They're not stoking rivalry. They're reinforcing the system. That's discipline. Because if you declare a quarterback too early, you limit flexibility. If you let camp decide inside a stabilized environment, you get a cleaner answer. And here's something people overlook. Momentum can flip. Deshaun Watson still has experience. He still has arm talent. If he steps into improved protection and looks sharp, the veteran narrative returns fast. If Shedeur struggles under real pressure, the optimism cools. That's how competition works. But what's different this time is the runway. Cleveland isn't asking its quarterbacks to survive chaos anymore. They're asking them to execute inside structure. That's a fair test. And fair tests expose ceilings. The old Browns quarterback debates were clouded by instability, injuries, scheme changes, line breakdowns. There was always an external factor muddying the evaluation. This year, those external factors are being minimized, which means the internal answer becomes unavoidable. And that's the real shift. Not hype, not draft talk, not analyst opinions. Clarity. Because once one quarterback separates in this cleaned-up structure, the conversation changes from should he start to how far can he take them. And when that happens, the offseason narrative transforms into a season-long storyline. So yes, momentum is real. But momentum is only powerful if it survives performance. And Cleveland is about to find out who can carry it forward. Step back from the names for a second. This isn't just about Shedeur Sanders. It's not just about Deshaun Watson. It's not even just about the 6th pick in the draft. It's about identity. For years, the Browns have struggled to create a clear offensive identity. Every season felt like a reset, a new coordinator, a new scheme, a new quarterback debate. Instability became the storyline. What Todd Monken and Andrew Berry are doing right now feels different. They're not chasing headlines. They're building structure. That's how sustainable teams operate. Look at Kansas City. Look at Philadelphia. Look at San Francisco. The quarterback debate doesn't define them every offseason because the foundation is already stable. Cleveland seems to be trying to reach that level. Tender the depth. Fortify the line. Evaluate true tackles. Study receiver depth instead of forcing a reach. Create conditions where the quarterback isn't fighting the system, he's operating within it. That's maturity. And if that maturity holds, something bigger happens. The Browns stop being the franchise constantly searching for answers at quarterback. They become the franchise identifying one. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. If the infrastructure is solid and no quarterback clearly separates, the answer becomes obvious too. You move on. That's the power of clarity. This offseason isn't about proving Shedeur right. It's not about redeeming Watson. It's not about validating Kiper. It's about removing noise so performance speaks. And that's how strong organizations evolve. Right now, Cleveland isn't promising a savior. They're preparing a stage. And when the stage is stable, the spotlight doesn't flicker. It reveals. So whether the name on the jersey ends up being Sanders, Watson, or someone unexpected, one thing feels certain. The Browns are finally building in a way that makes the answer undeniable. And for this franchise, that might be the biggest development of all. And that's what makes this offseason different. Not the headlines, not the hype, not even Mel Kiper planting a flag on national TV. It's the structure. The Browns aren't scrambling. They're not patching leaks midseason. They're building deliberately, protection first, stability second, evaluation third. No quarterback has officially been crowned. No decision has been handed down. But the environment is being shaped so that when the answer comes, it won't be cloudy. It'll be clear. If Shedeur rises in this system, it'll be earned. If Watson reclaims control, it'll be justified. And if neither separates, Cleveland will finally know without guessing. That's the power of preparation. For once, this doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like direction. And when camp opens, we won't just see a quarterback competition. We'll see whether this franchise is finally ready to move forward with conviction instead of doubt.